I'd like to give the floor now to Mr. Elhamy and Mr. Haitham to point out what are the most important mechanisms to improve things. We need to change some mechanisms, but there are what we call drivers of change. Things, if we change, things will be better. So I would like to ask you to answer this. The first thing, what are the most important mechanisms? And second, explaining the expenditure or the spending rates and the target numbers according to countries. So we need to know the basis of such expectations. Okay, do you hear me? Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Abla. Dr. Abla for the great effort she has exerted, and also to thank my little friend, the great analyst for her the great effort that she did yesterday, and Mr. Farid, who created this car, which is going to explain what we are doing. We had a number of individuals who cooperated with us. I can recall quickly Mr. Mohammed Al-Attan and Mr. Ihab Abdelail and Mr. Nassar and Mr. Hisham Gaber, and also Mr. Al-Haggar. He was always with us. It's not our own effort, but it's the effort of all individuals and teams that worked with us. I'm going to give my feedback on the remarks by the order Mr. Abla has mentioned. The independence of the Travel Agency Association and the Federation. There is a regulation which has been developed for the Federation and the Travel Agency Association, and there was an article therein which I have a comment on it. The article stated that the director of the federation is not to travel unless he has a permission from the minister. This is an independent federation, and it is not affiliated to the ministry. And this article is very strange because the association has its own budget, and it's not having any finance from the government. So this is a basic issue. The federation is an independent organization, and it is not a governmental body. It is not subscribing to the government. We have thousands working in this sector who were annoyed by this article. The second thing I would like to say is that I and Haitham worked on an issue which is very important to be monitored, as Dr. Abla said, for the performance follow-up. We developed a system for monitoring or following up external offices, and it's an impartial system. It is based on numbers or figures, and the manager of the office is to check certain boxes on these systems. The Travel Agency Association and the Federation is doing the same. The director of such a manager is doing the same, and without any effort, they come up with certain figures, and these figures is demonstrating a score and no minister ever would like to hear what we have done. And let's go back to the figures, and as Dr. Haitham also has some remarks on such figures, we have a conservative increase of the revenue and the numbers, because the conditions we are talking about, if available, we are going to increase such figures. And if we do not have such conditions, we are going to exert more effort, and the figures might also be reduced or decreased. And what we are going to say is very important. As for the revenue, as you know, after the collapse in the price conflict, it's very difficult to sell the night by $10 and the 5-star night by 15-star, all inclusive. And in order to do this, in order to sell it for $30, I have to increase how much what is the percentage of increase I'm going to apply here? I'm going to apply 20%. How am I going to do this? It's by improving or ameliorating the service. And of course, we are talking in accordance with the tourism, and the Dr. Haitham is going to talk about its relevance with hotels. I'm sorry, I'm going to read from the paper. This is a very important point. We request from Dr. Abla that this effort is to be done each year, because this data and information are updated each year. And of course, you are going to be we are going to be grateful for you if you do this. When we developed this data and roadmap, we didn't have the whole all-inclusive operations in Sinai. So we have to repeat this effort or this system because it's going to be updated in accordance with the circumstances. And we used to be 10 developing such a survey, and some people would say that to increase the number of tourists from China, because China is going to replace Russia. And this is, of course, reasonable. It's not reasonable, because China is very remote from us than Russia. Chinese tourists are visiting the neighboring countries, and they go for gambling, but they go to such places to gamble, and after which they go to Paris rather than London in order to buy the Louis Vuitton brand, to buy, for example, a bag for his wife or something like this. Even Chinese tourists go to Milano and Paris. They don't even go to Athens. This is a remark. And as Dr. Hussein said, they would like to go to America. That's why the Americans didn't have a great number of consulates to provide visas. Therefore, so they sent consulate missions in order to issue visas for such tourists. And there was a tragic incident happened that a charter from China was launched from China, and the trip cost $2,200, and Egypt is providing this trip for only $500, including the travel, the flight. So in order to reduce this price, I'm not going to have a lot of clients because China is going to is um, is producing thousands of tourists. I'm not going to receive, but only small numbers of them. They take also they reserve or they book for their cruises. All inclusive as well, and so that's why it's very wrong to target China instead of Russia. So what are the things or the procedures to be done in order to progress? There was, we used to have different concepts and methodology. Good morning. I'm not going to prolong it like Mr. Elhamy, but I would like to thank Dr. Abla. I am honored to be one of the teamwork working in the center with Dr. Abla and her team. And honestly, it's very respectable to have a scientific think tank working on an institutional system like that I have witnessed here in the center. And I was saying today that this study is to be shared with other foreigner partners so that they might have some other ideas to for our advancement and our progress. Doing this was based on numbers achieved in the last year when the tourism was participating in the national income with great figures, and it used to have a great percentage in our GDP. So how to improve our tourism sector and what are to be done? We had a lot of ideas, but instead of inventing the wheel from the very beginning, we had to compare ourselves with other competitive countries and to see what are the tourism products to be produced by these countries and to work on ourselves in Egypt. We could see that the figures displayed by Russia was not convincing, and what we are targeting might be less than what we achieved in 2010, but we are limited to a number of factors in stating such numbers, where we are, what our expectations as a state in 2017, and the report which is issued by the WTTC proposes that we grow to 1.6 to 1.4%. And all these were taken into our consideration. We had a debate amongst ourselves that the figures are just an indicator in order to move from point A to point B. Regardless of the figures, the number of tourists are built or based on the economics and in all the markets, which is limited to the number of flights traveling all over the world and the number of tourism rooms in all attractions in Egypt. And one of the factors we based our data upon is the expenditure rate, which is ranging from $50 a day. In order to ameliorate this and to improve these numbers and to achieve more reasonable income, we have to realize certain issues in, for example, performance follow-up. And as the government and the parliament is going to have a role in following up the performance of the ministry and the sector, we also need to establish a mechanism in order to satisfy our clients who are going to provide us with the income, and how we are going to satisfy them with the performance of Egypt, and what are the proposals that they may provide us with in order to improve our product. We used to work on the hotels, the resorts, the beaches, the entertainment, the archaeological places, and all these things are 90% our natural resources, and how to improve them. how when we go abroad, we find that people try to visit theaters in order to what are new entertainment and theaters and what are to be demonstrated to attract the tourists. This is one of the mechanisms that's going to be developed in order to have a connection or communication between us and our end client. This is one of the things that we have to deal with in order to follow up the performance. As for the capacity building, how to focus on training. We have to focus on training because unfortunately since 2011 till the present time, a number of our colleagues in the sector would of course agree with me that we have disregarded training for a great deal, and those who are working in hotels or travel agencies or travel businesses are paying for not having a good training or training plan which include the whole sector. As you know, in the past years we lost tourism employees and laborers like 30% of our tourist of the tourism workforce, they headed for other competitive countries and for certain other kinds of work. We don't have the training courses which could improve the team or the recruited persons, so we are not going to be in line with the tourism if tourism has regained its position in Egypt. So we have to give a great importance to training, which is going to help the hotels so they improve the performance of the workforce, whether hotels, tour guides, drivers, and all other workers in tourism sector. The second thing or the third thing which we must do is a thing which we have started in 2010, which is the new norms to upgrade the quality standards in hotels. In fact, I would like to thank Mr. Ahmed Al-Wasif, who is the responsible for hotel rooms sector, who is reviving this issue. And his idea was based on evaluating our hotel rooms by five stars. And we find out that other competitor countries are evaluating the rooms which we evaluate by five for only 3 stars. I know that a lot of investors are insolvent and they are seeking the support of the banks and the funds in order to upgrade our hotels. If you are not going to do this and to be competitive as our neighboring countries, we are going to lose opportunities and we are going to target only tourists who pay little money. We have to target class A and the class B tourists, and it's not going to be applied if we do not improve our system and our plan. We have to improve and upgrade the transportation, the roads, and we have to take care of our tourism product and to boost it. We have a heritage or a preconceived idea that we must have 5-star hotels. So we have to stop giving licenses for new establishments until they are re-evaluated, and all the licenses are to be issued afterwards, and to see what are the capacities within these hotels and what are the potentials to attract the tourists. because if we have imbalance between the offer and the request, we are going to pay as a result for this. So we have to overlook the whole system and to apply the new norms and to focus on the service as well. Not only the hardware, but also the software on how to evaluate and to provide good services, whether through hotels or travel agencies.
As for touristic places management, I feel very jealous when I go to Cairo airport and to see the situation our airports has, and then when I go with my daughter to visit the pyramids of our monuments compared to when we travel in Europe. How do we disregard the importance of our natural resources? How don't we have a professional management capable of running these places? In any place all over the world, the state can make money and the private sector from the services offered at airports. Yes, sometimes we do this in Egypt. Companies do this, but you are paying money for these services, and you might find someone making noise, calling people to get taxis in a very unprofessional manner. I'm sorry if I went off topic, but because I feel so sorry for this sector and for our country. We need to have this point in mind while we are working. Without intervening on things other than our point, we need to make sure that we have specialized companies and we can ask the help of certain experts to manage and run these places in a professional way. In our work, we always say first impressions last. So the first impression tourists get is at their airports. So when they go to take a taxi, maybe a fight happened with the taxi driver. Why don't we have a line of taxis available to tourists? This is the management of touristic places or anything relevant to tourism sector, whether at airports or in Sharm el Sheikh, Hurghada, etc. And unfortunately, when we go to Guna, it's really organized and the system is in place and everyone is happy with the tuk-tuk, though we suffer a lot from it here in Cairo. So the idea of good management of touristic places and airports is very critical, and this is a special request. Please raise this point in the parliament. Mr. Elhamy discussed also the Egyptian Tourism Association, or the concept of this organization, and the point was to link everything together and to have standards for tourist businesses abroad, and there is a report issued on the sales calls and the number of interactions, on the newspaper monitoring, on our country's image abroad. So we need to link tourist businesses and the Egyptian Travel Agencies Association and the ministry with the countries abroad through monthly reports to be able to market well and to choose certain areas where marketing is needed. So we need to better our performance when it comes to marketing our country, and we cannot do so unless we have the right information to build on, or right information to make informed decisions. And we have a problem when it comes to data accessibility or data availability and making use of any data. And this project was supposed to be presented 2 or 3 months ago, but because of lack of data, we had this delay. And the same applies to decision makers. And this comprehensive study has to be updated on a daily, monthly, and annually basis in line of the developments going on our country and the progress we want to make, and also in light of the strong competitive neighboring and far countries, because the fast they progress, the harder we need to work. Some neighboring countries don't have any tourism factors, but they have far exceeded us because they work according to a systemic and sound scientific methodology, and this methodology of course paid off. I wish I could give you a fruitful presentation about the rationale behind working in our sector, and I'm very happy to hear your questions. Thank you so much. I'll build on some of the points raised. When we talk about the medium expenditure rate on a daily basis, you might find other numbers elsewhere. If you were able to get this information, because getting information is not easy, $50 a day is the number from expanding in hotels. We couldn't include the numbers of purchase or merchandise done in local markets, because other people might say $85 or $90 a day. So this is the number channeled to the Central Bank of Egypt. On the point of the rehabilitation of touristic establishments, the governor of the central bank said that we allocated some money to rehab touristic establishments. So people went to banks and they said, no, we cannot finance insolvent people. We cannot give you this amount of money. So especially in tourism. So I said there is an important criterion. Prices went down in 2008 after the world financial crisis. So if people were insolvent before this crisis, then you have every right to refuse his help. But if people went insolvent after 2011, then you need to help. We also had a tourism investment fund with Dr. Ashraf Salman a few years ago, and we gave 100 million pounds, 50 million pounds were invested in this fund, and 1.5 million in the private sector, and we wanted to put this money and get 5 times the money invested. And this fund might include outsider partners coming to ask the capital owner, do you want to get this or shall I sell it to the market? And with Dr. Ashraf, we calculated this 3 or 4 years ago, that we will get 20% revenue on an annual basis. Maybe we have hope again to invest, and we have other funds in Egypt. Now I will move to transportation. I'm going really fast, sorry for this. As for transportation means in Egypt, we have railways, we have aviation or private vehicles like cars or buses. We need at least 5,000 new buses. We only have 500. It used to be for 600,000. Now it costs 3 million. and things are not going well with the exportation and importation. So we need funding. Otherwise, we will not have enough vehicles to transport people. But there is a solution. We have a regulation by the ministry. Instead of getting the line of this year, we can get the model for like 3 years ago, but brand new cars. And this happens all over the world, and you will not be able to distinguish between 27 model and the 2014 model. And yes, European Union has some requirements that would make the bus cost around 5 million, but for local buses they cost around 3.5 million. We need to take care of this, otherwise we will face a tough problem next year. Now, moving to capacity building, we used to have a center for training chefs in Akhbar al-Yom in the 6th of October area. This center did not get the enough funding, and it's closed now. Okay, now you started again, but it has been closed for 2 years. I'm clear in this because people did not get their money, so no one was trained for 2 years, and it will take you some time to get students. 150 students graduate every 6 months, and they always travel to work abroad, and I tell them it's a good investment. When you educate and train people and travel, this is still a revenue to be channeled again. So we had in 2001 another organization for classification and rating for all the professions related in tourism, worked together with Ahmed Nahas, but this place also stopped working. It took us years of work. Yes, we can still renew this, but I'm telling you facts. So if we don't build the capacities, we will face a major problem. When you go to hotels, you will not find enough employees or well-qualified employees because they left the sector or traveled abroad. So we had 15 million from the previous minister, Faiza Abunaga, to train people from other sectors. So I can train engineers, give them English courses so they can work in tourism, for example. I want to add something. We need to have training and reconsidering the curricula in institutes and universities available. And we need to start this early on. We need to have this curricula at schools. Even children need to understand the importance of tourism. And we started talking to the deans of faculties at universities. How can we upgrade the curricula, whether in hospitality schools or colleges? But things stopped. So we need to work on this intensively. Also, we need to market and brand this product through the different media outlets. We need to care for the tourists. We need to know how to deal with tourists. This is part of the training system. It's part and a parcel of the overall system. Last point I want to discuss is marketing. We don't have marketing. And marketing is different than promotion. There are a number of stages you need to go through before the promotion or the promotional areas or the sales. Okay, we promote and we sell, but we do not identify or clarify the project. We don't have a philosophy for branding. if you market, you need to have a brand. We don't design slogans. We always use ready-made or old things. We still use it. But the country as a whole has to work on marketing, and the ETA and the like organizations has to work on this. And before closing any entity, you need to give us an alternative, because people wanted to start programs in 2019. They stopped. So the office in New York closed. So if an employee is not performing well, lay him off, but don't just close the office. And then now, after months, we think of an alternative. This is very important. Marketing is a scientific discipline. It's a field in itself. And there are ready-made plans that should be implemented. And sorry for taking too much time. Thank you so much, Mr. Elhamy and Mr. Haitham, for clarifying some of the mechanisms. I want to comment on 2 points. Performance follow-up means a lot, means more than the number of rooms available. Also, we need to monitor capacity building. We need to monitor the achieved part of capacity building. The other point has to do with the airports. International airports all over the world have a place for free duty shops where you will get to see some of the local products. Here you will see these local products like few jalabis and few camels not presented well. Even if you go to visit Oman and Dubai, they don't have many local products, but the first thing to see would be dates. And well presented, they are very proud of their handicrafts and local products.